Hello, it's Mr. Collins, and you'll notice that I'm appearing on the screen for once. Another teacher who knows a lot about these things says that apparently having a face to look at is helpful. I would also suggest using the closed captioning. I'm curious what you think of this, if you think this is helpful or if it's not. So let's get started. Get a fresh page in your notebook or a clean piece of paper. The words we're going to talk about here are Bible words. This will be one section of your test. And let's begin with the easiest one, the word Bible. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Don't write that down. That is not the meaning of the word Bible. If you are taking Spanish, you might talk about Carlos going to, vamos a la biblioteca, and that's the word for library. Or you might be familiar from your English classes with writing a bibliography, which is a list of sources that you are using for something. In the old days, we used books as our sources. So the word Bible literally means book or books, or book of books, because the Bible is a book, and it's a book that's full of a lot of different books. Different genres of literature, different styles of writing, different historical periods in which they were written. But the word Bible means book, and it is a book full of books. Speaking of which, we can talk about the canon of Scripture. Please note there's only one N in the middle of this. Two N's would be the thing that makes a loud noise. The canon of Scripture, the literal meaning of the word, and I don't think this is useful to write down, means rule. These are the books that measure up. A better definition for canon is the books that are in the Bible, the books that are part of the canon, the books that we consider to be inspired by God, acceptable, or the ones that a bunch of people a long time ago added. And there's lots of books that you would recognize as being in the Bible. Don't write these down, but these are all part of the canon. Even books that you maybe don't recognize too well, like Ecclesiastes, is a canonical book. So the canon of Scripture refers to the books that are actually in the Bible. So I hope that's helpful. I've got a word that's related that might be useful a little bit further down. The word apocryphal comes from the Greek, and the word apocryphal literally means hidden. And the other word I could use instead of apocryphal is non-canonical. There are lots of ancient books written by Christians, written by Jews, that were never accepted into the Bible. They are hidden. They're not really that hidden anymore. You could go online and look them up. We will actually use some of them in our class second semester to talk about what are the books that were accepted into the Bible and why were they accepted and why were other books excluded from the Bible. So the apocryphal books are things you've never heard of before. The Assumption of Moses, the Gospel of Judas Iscariot, the Book of Enoch, the Infancy Gospel of Thomas is one we will actually use next semester, as well as the Gospel of Thomas. So we have a Bible, and it's got all the books that we accept, the ones that belong to the canon of Scripture, and then there are apocryphal books, hidden books that are not part of the Bible, the non-canonical books. The other word, and you can see the word canon inside of this, is the word deuterocanonical. The Greek root deutero means second. Deutero-Isaiah is second Isaiah. The deuterocanonical books are books that are in a Catholic Bible, but they're not accepted by Protestants. So Protestants might sometimes refer to these as apocryphal books, but technically they're deuterocanonical books. They are accepted as sacred scripture by Catholics, but not by Protestants. And without getting into a long explanation, Luther was the first person to say, hey, these books really don't belong. And I'm going to give you a list of them here. Please don't write these down. Again, I hope you didn't write down all the other books that came flying by. But these are the books, yuck, that looks bad, that are in the Catholic Bible, but not the Protestant Bible. Tobit, Judith, 1 and 2 Maccabees, Wisdom, Sirach, Baruch, and then the book of Daniel and the book of Esther both have extra chapters in the Catholic Bible. And we will read some of these as required assignments later next semester and as extra credit as well. So you don't need to know those, but those 4 words up there, conveniently, A, B, C, D, are going to be on our test. Got a few more words to add to you. The word is testament. For Christians, the Bible is divided into 2 sections. Not quite the midpoint, but most of the Bible is what Christians call the Old Testament. I'll go into more detail about that in class. And the New Testament, which is the focal point for Christians. The word testament itself means covenant. And the word covenant is something you need to define. Hopefully some of you have heard this back in your Catholic schools. I don't assume that you already know this, so I'm just going to define it. A covenant is a promise, and in ancient cultures, 2 kings might enter into a covenant together. They might make a relationship for trading purposes or defense purposes. But in the Bible, a covenant is an agreement or a promise or a pact, P-A-C-T, between God and humanity. And there's a series of covenants in the Bible that we will talk about as we move through it. So covenant means agreement. Again, it's a very serious agreement, not just like, oh, I promise I'll be there on time, but really, really serious agreement. And in the Bible, agreement between God and humans. As I said before, for Christians, the New Testament, the covenant mediated by Jesus, is the focal point of our scriptures. But within the New Testament itself, there's different types of literatures. There's epistles written by St. Paul, there's the Gospels, there's the Acts of the Apostles. And for Christians, the Gospels are the heart of our scripture. So we have all of these books of the Bible, and out of all those books, there are 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that are the heart of our story. They're the stories of Jesus and his life and his teachings and his death and resurrection. So the gospel, the word gospel, literally means the good news. We'll go into more detail on that later, but that's the heart of the Christian Bible, although the New Testament contains other Christian scriptures as well. For Jews, they don't say, oh, let's open up our Old Testament to this page. They don't refer to their Bible as the Old Covenant. They might refer to it as the First Covenant, and I'll spend some time in class going into this in detail. But for Jewish people, they refer to their Bible as the Tanakh. And Tanakh is an acronym. I will spend some time in class going over this. And it refers to the 3 main parts of the Hebrew Bible: the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. And sometimes these V's are B's, depending on how it's been transliterated. So the T and the N and the K are the Torah, the Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. I'd like you to write all 3 of those words down, but I'm not going to expect you to remember the word Nevi'im or the word Ketuvim on this test. I will expect you to know what the word Torah means, however. The word Torah literally means the instruction, or often it is translated as the law. The other 2 parts of the Jewish Bible are the prophets, which includes people like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, plus the former or the older prophets like Samuel and Elijah. And the Ketuvim contains all the rest of the writings, the poetry books and some of the stories and things like that. But again, for our purposes, I want to focus on this word Torah. The Jewish Bible has 3 distinct parts, but the Torah is the heart of the Jewish Bible, just as the Gospels are the heart of the Christian Bible. The word Torah is a Hebrew word. Sometimes the Torah is referred to, however, as the Pentateuch. And if you're in geometry class, you might recognize the root of this. Penta means 5, pentagram or a pentagon. And Tuch refers to scrolls. So the Greek word Pentateuch refers to the 5 scrolls. So I can refer to the first 5 books of the Bible as the Torah, or I can refer to the first 5 books of the Bible as the Pentateuch. The first 5 books of the Bible, by the way, you don't need to write this down, but I'm going to give it to you anyways, are the books of Moses. They're sometimes referred to Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And I'd like you to get used to this idea that a lot of times I will abbreviate books in the Bible using a 2-letter abbreviation, very standardized. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 letter abbreviations. People can put GEN or NUM or DEUT, which actually has the same root as deuterocanonical. It means the second law. Not a test question. But you should understand the words that I gave you on the first slide: Bible, canon, apocryphal, deuterocanonical. You should have good definitions for what the word Tanakh means, what the Torah is, how the word Torah and Pentateuch are different from each other but refer to the same thing. And that should give you a good start for our next class. One last clarification I want to make. The word lectionary is something you should add to your notes. And if you are Catholic and coming from a Catholic school, I would be thrilled if you knew what a lectionary was. If not, don't worry, I'm going to tell you. I don't assume any of you know any of this stuff. The lectionary is the books that are read in church, or the readings that are done in church. So when we have a school mass, or if you go to a liturgy, they will read from the book of Exodus, or the book of Jeremiah, or the book of 2 Corinthians. Not everything in the Bible gets read in church. There are whole books of the Bible that are never read in church, or very, very small sections of certain books are read in church. The Gospels, we read almost the entire Gospels in church over the course of a 3-year cycle. And same for Jewish people. They read the entire Torah over the course of a year. But there's other books in their canon of Scripture that are not read during their liturgies. So sometimes we're going to get to stories in the Old Testament especially, and students will say, wow, that's a really weird story, never heard that before. And I'll say, yeah, that's one of those things they never read in church, and there's a reason why. We believe that the Bible is inspired by God. We believe that people wrote it down, and some things are more useful for instruction than others. And so that's why not everything that's in the Bible gets read in church. So again, make sure you understand this distinction. When the person comes up and opens up a big red book on the ambo or the podium at Mass, that's not a Bible. It has readings from the Bible. That's the lectionary, and it doesn't have everything that's in the Bible. That should do it. So take a picture of your notes and upload them to Canvas. Other students will be looking at them and commenting on them. Thank you.